welcome to the Friday Fraudster podcast. Join them as they discuss sad, funny, and sometimes disturbing fraud stories. Be sure to catch past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform or go to www.fridayfraudster.com.
All right. How about now? All righty.
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right.
And you're coming in on YouTube. You're good.
Okay, so you are not going to believe this. You are not going to believe this. It was my fault. It was not you this week.
I restarted my phone.
Okay, look. As you can see, my background is different. So I'm in a new
Yeah.
location, and so I had to set everything up again.
Oh, I'm
And I
sorry.
made a fantastic boo-boo this week. So if this is your first time watching us, we're not usually like this. Go back and watch some previous episodes. We're usually more this is funny. Because and so now, okay. So Stephanie is here. Bob Wessler is here. Carol Lyman is here. And Carol is saying, "Yes, I can hear you now." Curtis is saying that he can hear now as well.
Good, good, good.
So I do apologize, friends and family. That was all me this week. And you know what, Christine? I didn't, you know what? I couldn't even set it up this week like I normally do by asking you a very silly question that you would so politely indulge me in answering because I've already disclosed to them what this week's story is.
But who heard you?
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Nobody heard you.
Sound was off. See, this is why I need a good co-host, right? This is why I bring Christine back. Okay, so listen, everyone, listen. Here's the question that I have for you all. Here's the question that I have for you all this week. Has anyone ever been a part of their child's booster club in sports? You ever been a part of the booster club?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Um,
And anybody else
okay.
listening?
So I just volunteered, but it's not a booster
Mhm.
club for sports. I just volunteered to take over for the treasury position for our youth band organization.
Ah.
So
Mhm.
coming, I think probably this spring once the board votes on it, if anybody else wants to do it. So far they don't have anybody. Then I'll be taking over that. And the nice thing is they get me for like at least 6 years because this includes our middle school, which my son's going to be doing that all the way through high school. So, but
Now,
yeah, so yeah, I will be.
how much money do you think they have? Like, how much do you think is at stake here?
Oh, I
I
know.
mean, a couple
They
hundred
get
dollars, a couple $1,000, tens of thousands of dollars.
tens of thousands of dollars
Ah, yeah. Now, and
is what.
in the past, we've talked about these booster clubs that have had money stolen from them. And, we thought kind of because they were
Mhm.
small organizations, they didn't have proper controls and segregation of duties. And that's why it happened to these smaller organizations.
Well, we talked about that. That actually there was a big story here in the town that I am in that one of the baseball coaches stole $7,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, this can happen in small organizations where there's Pop Warner or P have too much money to not have good controls in place. Isn't that? Don't you think so?
I would think so. If they know how much, like if they know like 3 years ahead of time how much they can spend on their next draft coming up in 2029, based on all the contracts that they have and the analysts, I would think, yeah, it would be pretty much impossible to steal from a professional team. Prove
Do
me
you think,
wrong.
well, especially since they have salary caps and they have to
Mhm.
watch every piece of income that comes in so that they don't go over the salary caps and things like that. So for all
Right.
you people listening, even though we had a fairly late start for everyone listening, have you ever seen this problem before? Do you think it could happen in like a big sports organization? Now, Curtis says, haha, you would think. Yeah, I mean, I would think that this wouldn't happen in some of these big organizations. And Shree says, oh man, booster clubs are the first to steal. She said it was bad here in Houston in 2017 after Harvey. Oh, wow. Right after the hurricane? one booster club at the high school her daughter went to stole like $10,000 to $15,000. Wow. That's insane.
Now, if you told me there were professional athletes getting scammed out of money, oh, I bet you that happens all the time. They don't even realize it. But I couldn't see
Yeah.
team.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of weird for an entire team to be scammed out of a large sum of money. I mean, a small sum maybe, but a large sum of money, that just seems odd. It seems like everybody would have their finger on the pulse again, especially because you have to watch how much money you're spending on players because of the salary cap. So wouldn't you be looking at every other piece of your financial operation like that? And my man Clarence is here. So Clarence actually won a mug and a t-shirt 2 weeks ago. I don't know if he's gotten it yet or if he's ordered it yet, but Clarence, let everybody know if you've gotten your mug yet and if you like it. So for the people who won last week, I haven't forgotten you. I'm behind 1 week, as I always am, right? So that's my typical schedule, you know.
You didn't choose anybody last week, did you?
Ooh, maybe that was the week before last then.
It was the week before last, because for the week of Christmas, that's when you gave out like 3. But you didn't do anything
Yeah.
last week.
Yeah. You know what? You might be right. Yeah.
At least
Oh,
I
you
don't
know what?
think
It may have been the Audit Bites podcast because I did give away something last week. Now Clarence is saying he doesn't have them yet, but they're on the way. So
Good.
yeah, awesome. All right. So what are we talking about today? Now, some of you may have been thrown off. We're not talking about booster clubs because that didn't happen, at least not this week. What we're talking about is a young man who's accused of stealing more than $22 million from the Jacksonville Jaguars football team. $22 million. Can you all believe that?
Do you know how many third-round rookies you can pay with that amount of money?
Right?
I know a little bit
because-
about football.
Well, yeah. Well, the minimum annual salary I think is $250. I believe the minimum that anyone can make, regardless of position, it's something like $150 or $250. I can't remember now.
It depends. My husband did tell me this. It depends on what round you get picked. That's why they want to be a first-round pick, because then their salary is guaranteed higher. If my husband is wrong, y'all don't come at me.
No, he's right.
And maybe I misinterpreted.
No, it's my understanding that he's right about that too. But yeah, so $22 million. Now check this out though. Before we even tell you how it happened allegedly, let's talk about the things that he used the money for. Allegedly, he used the funds to buy 2 vehicles, a condo, a designer watch that I believe was valued at $95,000. So I'm guessing maybe it was a Rolex or something. He also invested in cryptocurrency and chartered personal jets and also placed bets on online gambling websites.
Yeah. And it's funny when this story comes out, because then everybody that was a part of it's like, oh, we know how much he spent. So the gambling site that he was on said, this is the bets that we can trace back to his username. So this is how much he spent in gambling that we know of.
Now, what was the gambling number?
They were able to account for, I mean, so I can go, it depends on how deep you want me to go. So they said they could account for $500,000 that was tied to his name, like his username. But he did a lot of parlay bets for large dollar amounts. So like for $25,000 a pop. And it was eventually getting to the point that there would be people that would go in on those parlay bets with him because he sucked at gambling.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. It's called he was legendarily bad player amid theft case. So he was known by his player name as not making good bets.
Well, okay, but why would people bet with him on a parlay bet if he was known for being bad? Because, okay, so let's talk about what a parlay bet is. A parlay bet is when a bettor makes 2 or more bets and then combines them together in one wager. So, like if Christine and I wanted to pool our money together to make a bet, we could do a parlay bet. And so that's 2 bets and then we wager once. And I'm oversimplifying it, but if he was bad at it, then why would anybody go in with him? That's what I'm wondering.
No, is there a way could like people hedge against his bet, like hedge that he's gonna be wrong?
Yeah, that's a let me
Or
think.
like, do they look at what his parlay bets are and go, okay, I'm not going anywhere near that?
Yeah, there is a way that you can do that. That's why I was confused by parlay, because I thought parlay was you combine and then it makes it harder to actually win it, but the payout is bigger if you do win it.
Okay.
But yeah, so he allegedly had a gambling problem. Now I'm sure all of you can guess how it actually occurred or what enabled it to occur. But many of you might be surprised to know that the NFL football teams have a typical accounting and finance structure. Many of them have like a chief financial officer and then a controller or maybe a director of finance. Then they have some staff accountants or staff finance personnel. He began working there, I believe it was in 2019. In September of 2019, as a entry-level finance office personnel worker. Sorry, he started in 2018. I stand corrected. So he started as an entry-level finance worker. He was then promoted a little bit later on, and he was terminated in early 2023. They are thinking so far that the crime occurred when he was at his lower ranking position. And here's what happened. The organization began using virtual credit cards. Now, though there are a lot of advantages to those, businesses can actually do transactions online without revealing their credit card number. So there are a lot of reasons why a business would want a virtual credit card. And apparently there was another individual within that program that would check his work. So there was a segregation of duties initially, but then there was staff turnover. That person left and he had full control to set up accounts, close accounts, manage accounts, make payments, reconcile payments. So he had full control over it after an individual left. So now that's where the segregation of duties comes into play. Now, because he had that inappropriate segregation of duties, he was able to make purchases and then send false information to the accounting group that made it look like those purchases were legitimate. Does that about sum it up?
Yeah, that's exactly what sums it up.
So now, people were questioning how in the world could this happen at a $4 billion organization. The Jaguars are currently valued at about $4 billion. And there were some jokes on the internet about it saying, if you manage and monitor your salary cap, surely you can manage the other finances. And many people were saying that the amount that he stole is equal to the amount that the starting quarterback is being paid. So it's $22 million. What do you think, Christine?
I mean, this could have been so avoidable. So avoidable. So, first thing, I mean, I don't know about you. So whenever, I think there's only been once. There was one place that I worked at where I was an internal auditor and I actually had a corporate credit card because I did have to do a lot of travel between their corporate office and stuff. I didn't like that just because of our segregation. Like if you're wanting me to audit corporate credit cards, don't give me a corporate credit card. Like, that's the easiest way to avoid it, right? I read the thing. Number one, why are you giving him a credit card? What is he in your accounting department really need that they wouldn't be able to send a billing or an invoice to their AP person? Is that weird of me? I mean, I guess how many, and did you see how much his credit card limit was?
I missed that part. How much was his credit card limit?
Starting out, before he called the bank and got it increased,
Yeah.
his limit was 4.7 million. There's your issue. So then he was able to call the bank and go, can you raise it to 7.25? You lost that amount of money simply because you didn't have controls in place to control what your credit card limits were.
Wow.
What reason would he have needed to have that? I mean, he's not flying the whole football team somewhere.
So now I can tell you one reason why companies would use the virtual credit cards. Oftentimes with the virtual credit cards, you get a rebate. You get a kickback. Kickback is such a bad word. You get a rebate as an organization for using those virtual credit cards. And so if you're spending millions of dollars using your VCC, your virtual credit card, I imagine your rebate is fairly substantial too. And so that's one benefit for an organization using it. But for an individual in the finance department to have a $4 million credit card balance is probably crazy. For that same individual to be in charge of the VCC program is even crazier. But for that individual to also have the ability to go and raise their limits is even worse. And Shri is saying, wow, that's a lot of money. Now, here's what's really interesting. So I found the exact number that he's accused of stealing and a breakdown of some of the purchases. I know I mentioned some earlier, but it was $22,221,454.40. He bought that condo in Ponte Vedra Beach. So now let me tell you what Ponte Vedra Beach is. I lived in Jacksonville for about 20 years. You know the golf tournament, the Players Championship? Not the one in Augusta where they give out the green jacket, but the next biggest one that's huge. It's called the Players Championship. And it's the one that has the one hole where it's an island and the golfers have to hit the ball across the water and onto the island.
Mm-hmm.
That is in Ponte Vedra.
Okay.
So Ponte Vedra is an extremely wealthy area, very nice area where beachfront property is not cheap. So he bought a condo in Ponte Vedra. So that's the first thing. He bought a Tesla Model 3. Then he chartered the private jets. He had stays at luxury hotels. And I didn't mention this one last time. He had a country club membership.
He had that gambling addiction. I looked up the house that he owned. I guess we should put it in perspective. The condo that he bought was only like $260,000. His Tesla, if he would have bought that brand new, we're looking at what? The max amount being what, 60, 70,000 for a Tesla 3 sedan?
Yeah.
Like, he lived lavishly. I mean, I did look up a picture of the watch. It was a Patek Philippe watch. I've never heard of those before. It's a simple silver watch.
Never heard of it. I'm not used to luxury.
I mean, his condo isn't, anything crazy. It can't be
what
more
year did
than.
He buy the condo?
Huh?
When did he buy the condo?
I think it had to have been 2018. So it might have been because he started in 2018. At least that was the last time that the condo was sold. So it would have had to have been him.
Gotcha. Now, in February of last year, the Jaguars confirmed that he had been terminated. The federal documents didn't disclose how they found the fraud. That's what I'm really wondering, is how did they find it?
Couldn't find that either.
Yeah. We tried, folks. We couldn't find that.
I mean, you know me, sometimes I go down into wormholes. I actually found the federal U.S. sentencing table for people that are convicted. And because what's his maximum that he can face?
Let's see here.
Because he only got charged on 2 counts.
Yeah, it was wire fraud and I forgot the other one. Wire fraud and illegal monetary transaction.
Yes. So one is the maximum of 30 years. The other one is like the maximum, I think, of like what, 20 or 10?
I think it's 20, if I'm not mistaken.
So kind of looking at this, because then in the court document that they had for the plea agreement, because he did state that he was guilty. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to read this and like kind of understand it. So then they were talking about, because he's sorry for what he did, they're going to like reduce him down 2 levels. And I'm like, there's like levels? Yep. And so like I end up looking at that and I'm like, okay, well, if he doesn't have a criminal history, so I'm trying to play this like guessing game where we're like, oh, so the maximum is going to be 30. What are they going to get? So based on everything I could find, I'm like, well, if they go based on the chart and give him the lowest portion, he should serve at least 14 years.
Wow. Okay, so let's tell everybody about the chart, because not everybody's aware. In the U.S., we have what's called the U.S. Federal Sentencing Guidelines, and those are essentially guidelines that help determine what your sentence will be if you are convicted of a crime. And it has a lot of different elements to it. And some of the elements are, if you cooperate, then you may get some time reduced, a time reduction. If it was your first time committing an offense, you may get some time reduced. If you pay back the money or have some sort of restitution, you might get some points there as well. But there is a method somewhat to the madness. And then, you know, some things can be left up to a judge's discretion, just depending on what kind of crime it is and what kind of court you're in. But the federal sentencing guidelines dictate or provide guidance for your sentencing. Now, here's something else a lot of people don't know about the federal sentencing guidelines, but if you read them, they actually talk about compliance too. And they talk about the elements of an effective compliance program at your organization. And I don't know, so it's been about 3 years since I've read them, but at one point they really struck me as interesting, because it alluded to the fact that if you had a compliance program and you kind of half did it, then those points counted against you as an organization when it comes to fines and penalties. However, there was some language that made me and a few others believe that it would almost be worse to have an ineffective compliance program than it would be to just not do it and not have one at all.
So they can't point you on that. I mean, I looked just based on his one charge of fraud has a base points of 7 points.
Ooh.
7 points, right? Because of the amount of his fraud, they add 30.
30?
Yes. So that's where, but he's on that section D then, where if he's at like 37 points, your maximum sentence for your first criminal history category is 30 years.
Wow.
So and it makes me kind of sit here and throw it up in the air, because I'm like, we talk about these stories all the time, right? How often do we see somebody, and when I mean like the 30 extra points is if you steal, I'm pretty sure it was over half $500,000, right? So how do these people only end up serving 4 years? Because if you do the reduction of points, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I'm looking at the system and going, you know what? It's not actually set up bad. If every judge would sit there and go with it, there really wouldn't be a disparity on sentencing because they only give you that little minuscule, here's your minimum, here's your maximum. And for the level of fraud that he committed, because if you get over so many points, it's in this, like, you really messed up section, you have to serve the minimum. Like, there's no ability for early release. So I guess that's why I'm sitting here and going, based on the calculations that I'm looking at, based on the amount, he should have to serve 14 years. I'll be surprised if he serves more than 7. I don't know what you're thinking. Because he ain't going to be able to pay that restitution and stuff back.
Not if the money's going on gambling. I mean, and if you're saying the condo was only a couple $100,000, a lot of that money may actually be gone. And it makes you wonder, what did he spend it on? We saw luxury jet rentals. So that money is gone. Luxury hotel stays. That money's gone. Oh, here's the interesting thing that he spent the money on now. I know that we have an audience that has a really good sense of humor. So I'm going to say this, and I am not joking. And I know I have a dry sense of humor, and sometimes I say things with a straight face, and I'm joking. But for this one, I am not joking. But you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I want someone to guess what is the strange thing that he allegedly spent some of the money on. Christine is even baffled. I don't think she's seen it. Now, I will say
read that whole thing.
You read the whole thing? Oh, okay. Well, there's one thing that is extremely unique that he spent the money on. Now, I will say we may not get any answers today from our chat because LinkedIn is doing something very strange. Like, it started my stream over 3 times since we've been doing the show today. So you on top of me starting without any volume today, LinkedIn is, I think, kicked people out a couple of times and started it over from the beginning. It does that on occasion. But Christine, can you guess what is one very strange thing that he spent some of the money on?
Okay, so I know it was the house, the watch, the cars. I mean, he did charter flights, he did gambling. I don't know. I don't have it written down. I did not catch that. What?
Okay.
So here's what I'm worried about. Is it something that I read and it didn't seem weird to me because it's something that I would purchase, and now I'm worried what you're going to see what it is.
Oh, it would have seemed weird to you. Oh, okay. Boy, we've got we got.
Is that a weird way of looking at it? Like, maybe I didn't think.
No, that's not a weird way of looking at it. But Carol says, was it a mail order bride?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean,
Michael
he is only 31.
Surgery.
Selective surgery.
So I'm just gonna play around for a little bit and let people guess because this is getting fun now.
Okay, so he's 31. Okay, he did spend it on some like sports memorabilia. And I also know like he was buying electronics and then selling them to get cash.
Yeah. Now that part made me wonder if there was maybe a drug problem, because that's odd to buy electronics and then sell them to get cash. That's
desperate need for cash.
Right. So that's a weird one. I with that one, I wondered if maybe he was trying to help out some relatives, or like, because from what I can tell, he's single.
And cryptocurrency.
Yeah, cryptocurrency. Still haven't gotten it yet.
What are non-fungible tokens?
Oh, NFTs. God.
Oh, okay, NFTs. Okay, that's what it is. I know what that is.
Okay.
Oh, I think I know what it is.
You do?
Yes. Yep. Nah, I got it now. Because I was like, oh, he's setting himself up.
Okay, yep, you know what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
You know exactly what it is now. I want to see if anybody else has a really good guess, because Carol said mail order bride, and Carol, it was not a mail order bride. And Michael said selective surgery, maybe. Michael, it was not selective surgery.
That's my clue. He was setting himself up.
Now, Curtis is saying he has some ideas, but he doesn't want to come across as unprofessional. Now, Curtis, I can confirm that it is not anything like that where you would come across as unprofessional. Although that was the first thing that kind of came into my head too. Now, Christine just gave a really good hint. Let's talk about what this hint was. Christine said he was setting himself up. Now, I'm surprised you didn't say that one already, because that one was, when I saw it, I was like, oh, now that's odd.
I wasn't looking at my notes, and it's a new year. I'm really busy actually for work. It's a new year, so this was not on my plate to look over today.
That's right. You have a job.
I've got a job. By the way, thank you to my boss, Chad, who lets me do this podcast.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
Okay. So wait. Never mind. I won't spoil the other surprise yet. We'll probably spoil that one next week. Okay. So okay. I was trying to think of another hint that we could give people, but I can't even think of another hint.
If you knew he spent this money before they caught him, you would go, yeah, he did something wrong.
Ooh,
that's probably not a good one. Was it?
I think it's kind of good. Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tell our people so that they're no longer in suspense. He allegedly used some of the money to put a criminal attorney on retainer. Christine wants to laugh so bad.
Because I'm just sitting here and thinking what that lawyer's thinking. Like, all right, I'm going to take your money and hold on to it until you get found out. I mean, I guess I kind of think about it this, like, if he's working for that company, he stole money, right? And he went to his attorney and was like, hey, I'm in the middle of stealing money for this company, this organization. I need to retain you, right? Can the lawyer say something if he's still doing it and hasn't been caught?
Well,
or was that covered by attorney-client privilege?
So I don't think that it went down like that, right?
Oh, okay.
I think maybe he went to the attorney and he said, I just want to place you on retainer just in case. So for example, there are a lot of people who either have attorneys on retainer or who have purchased some sort of defense, who buy into a defense fund,
right?
Especially people who exercise their Second Amendment rights here in the U.S., because you could actually discharge your firearm, hurt someone by defending yourself, and end up in court. And that's happened to a lot of people. So sometimes people just want an attorney on retainer just in case. They don't necessarily have to be guilty. So I'm guessing he didn't go and say, listen, this is what I'm doing. Although he may have. Well,
because you know how you see those videos of people, or you hear people talk in movies and they're like, I'm going to call my lawyer. Like, am I weird? I don't have a lawyer. I've never had a lawyer. Okay. So that's why maybe I'm like, he probably walked in there and slapped down, $40,000 on the desk and said, hey, I'm stealing money. They're going to catch me soon. I need to retain you.
Yeah, most people don't have an attorney. And at best, a lot of people may have bought into some sort of legal fund where you have access to an attorney. They'll give you something like 1 free hour per month of consultation with an attorney. And then you have the right to tap into their attorney network. A lot of people may have bought into one of those, but most people don't have, like, most regular people like us, right, don't have an attorney on retainer.
I mean, I'm happy I don't.
Right.
But it always made me wonder when people would say that. Like, I'm like, why do you need an attorney?
Yeah, especially those that get pulled over for like a traffic ticket. I'm calling my attorney. Okay, you mean dad or mom's attorney if one of them or both of them are rich? Like, what? No.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that was kind of weird.
I thought you were going to say something about it earlier. I was just waiting on it, and you didn't say. I was like, wait a minute. Did she not
you can tell I haven't been looking at my notes because, of course, reading his plea agreement, I was going to have a question. So essentially they're like, if he takes this agreement, if other charges for some reason would come up in discovery, they're essentially going to say, nope, these are the charges that he's getting specific to this, right? But that the U.S. district courts are not going to go after him for any more. But he admits in the plea agreement, he did not claim the stolen funds as income on his tax returns, and they should have been. Can the IRS still go after him?
You know, I don't know if they still can, but they could have initially. I know for sure, but I don't know if they still can. But what? That's how they got Al Capone.
Right. I mean, he's gonna die broke because he's got to pay restitution. So his penalty or his restitution is the $20 million back for a total of a $40 million forfeiture. So he's gonna be paying them back $40 million, and he's already he's 31.
Yeah.
And he's gonna be sitting. He could face up to 30 years.
I think the one thing that's baffling about this one is oftentimes you'll see when people do this, they accumulate some sort of tangible assets as well that can be sold in forfeiture. But it looks like a lot of his was allegedly good times, concerts.
Good times of gambling.
Yeah. So
word of advice, if you guys have corporate credit cards, you can get that shut off to gambling sites because he used the credit card to pay for it. Double check your limits. When I was an examiner for the state, the amounts of times it was always, well, what if they need to spend that amount? What if? Well, you can call it in for a one-time bump. Should be able to do that. Give a limit to somebody that you're willing to lose and not lose your mind over. Like if somebody comes in, has a corporate credit card and they charge things and they used it instead of their personal card and you end up being up $5,000 for somebody in that position in your organization, can you swallow that and be okay with that? That should be your driver. It shouldn't be convenience. Shouldn't be your driver on those corporate credit cards. And check the number you have. Not everybody in your organization needs a corporate credit card.
The point that you made about keeping the limits low is extremely important. And nowadays, a lot of the credit card monitoring and management software that's out there, you can go directly into the software and specify a time period for which the increase is in effect and when it should shut off and go back down. It used to be that you had to call into the bank, like back in the day, right? You literally had to call in and speak to someone, and you had to give them a secret passcode that only you knew, and then they would raise the limit. And then with some banks, you actually had to call again to have it lowered back. But now there's, this credit card management software. Most banks have these systems where you can just go in with your username and password, say at this day to this day, this time to this time, I want the limit increased from this amount to this amount, and then decrease from this amount back to this amount. So I think with this one, definitely it was a lack of segregation of duties. And what did make me a little, well, I won't say happy because $22 million is missing, but in some of the write-ups, they were actually talking about we do or did or usually have strong internal controls. And they actually used that specific word. Now they just broke, and they broke when that one employee left. So turnover is big. When someone leaves, look at who is going to assume their duties. So I'm guessing this happened with the turnover. He assumed all of those duties. Then he got promoted. He still had the same access after he got promoted. So really lack of segregation of duties and then turnover. And that led to a lot of this. But to your other point, blocking gambling sites. So, you can block credit card transactions by code.
That's how you're not able to purchase lottery tickets on a credit card. You can't go buy your Powerball tickets on your credit card. Doesn't work that way. They don't allow you to do that. At least in our state, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I mean, I kind of, I don't want to say it's not funny, but we concentrate. Think about how many like websites your company blocks from you visiting because of potential spam, sites that you shouldn't be visiting, all that stuff. Like we're so concentrated on that IT and being spoofed and visiting sites that we shouldn't. Think about that on your asset side of stuff too. What should we be blocking? Gaining access to our cash or our actual physical assets. Think about that just as much. Sometimes I think we get really IT focused because we're living in that IT and we forget some of these basic controls that we would have had well before we had all this IT stuff in our face.
that's a very good point. That's another very, very good point. Because I mean, realistically, IT is only as smart as the humans behind it. At least at right now, at this point in life, it hasn't taken over yet. But oh, well.
Yeah. It makes you wonder
Else?
how many other football teams went, oh, whoa, and started checking themselves.
So, there was one article that I can't seem to find right now, but I was reading one article that listed some of the frauds that had occurred at other football teams. And there were quite a few other teams that had experienced similar frauds as well as other frauds. And
okay.
So this is not necessarily an isolated issue. However, from what I could tell, a lot of them tried to implement decent controls. But it's a weird thing because money gets spent on strange things when you have a sports team. And so although it runs like a typical company, there are certain things that are definitely not like a typical company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm guessing they would spend quite a bit of money on parties and, alcohol at times and food. And so, wow.
I mean, normally when we see this amount of money that's taken, we see stuff like your Louis Vuitton teddy bears and stuff like he does not have a lot to show. He's got $500,000 that the FBI is going to get from him on his assets.
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah. I'm still baffled by this one. I can't figure it out. I just really can't figure it out.
And I mean, so he blew, let's say, we'll just say he had 2 million in assets. We'll just say that, right? You blew through $2 million, 20 million, sorry, $20 million in 6 years. $20 million in 6 years.
I just, yeah. Okay. So one thing, let's go back to what you were saying about blocking your credit cards. Let's talk about that for a minute because not everybody knows how that works. Okay. So it's called an MCC code, a merchant category code. And so every transaction that happens on our credit and debit cards falls into a merchant category code. What you can do as an organization is go to your bank and say, I want you to block this specific MCC code from all of my credit cards. And one of the categories is alcoholic establishments or something like that. Now, I will tell you how people end up getting around that, though, is that they'll go to like a grocery store and purchase alcohol. So there was one,
right.
I remember one company I worked for, and we investigated a case where this individual was going to the store and she was buying gift cards and gas, and we had those blocked. However, there was one convenience store in the city that, from an MCC standpoint, merchant category code, was classified as a grocery store, something else, not as a liquor store, because it essentially was a liquor store.
Okay.
And so that's one way she was able to get away with it. Now, on top of blocking the MCC codes, you can get what's called level 3 credit card data. A lot of us get credit card data from our credit card company, and we do data analytics on it. And we just get the basic data where it says Home Depot or Albertsons or Kroger. Level 3 data breaks it down and tells you, okay, Kroger, ham, Kroger, eggs. It tells you exactly what they purchased. And I remember one time I actually used level 3 data when we were looking at the maintenance guys because somebody filed a whistleblower complaint saying that they were spending money on things that they were using in their personal handyman business.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to see exactly what they were purchasing from Home Depot. And we added up the number of times that they purchased this certain paint and drywall stuff. And it was more than they could have used in the period of time based on the purchase orders that were within the system internally at the organization. You know, the
Okay.
internal purchase orders to fix things, right? So level 3 data and the MCC codes are a really big help if you want to use data in order to try and see what story data tells you, because data will always tell you a story.
You should be able to Google those MCC codes because I'm guessing
Oh, yeah,
those codes are what drives a lot of those bonus capabilities in your online banking. So when you're using your debit or your credit card and it's sorting out whether it was groceries or utility bills and stuff like that, I'm guessing that's what drives that data.
Yeah, it's typically how the store is classified, which is why you can go to a store that's classified one way. Okay, so I'll give another example. Ooh, I probably shouldn't say this one, but I'll try to keep it as PG as possible. So, one time we found that there was an individual who was purchasing things from the candy store. And let's just say the candy store was a strip club. But but the MCC code was wrong because apparently it used to be like a real candy store. And so it still had the old MCC code. And so even though we had certain types of establishments blocked, and there is no MCC code for strip clubs, I don't think. I'm actually looking at a list right now. I don't think there's one for strip clubs, but
I'm not using my work computer to Google it.
I know, right? Yeah, there is not one for that, but oftentimes those clubs will be listed as like alcohol establishments or bars or something like that, something where you should be able to know. But anyway, so it was listed as something else, and so it got through, and we were looking at it like, oh, he was buying candy. Like, why was he buying candy using the company money? And then we kind of
1 o'clock in the morning.
Right, exactly. That's what gave it away was the time. I was about to say, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You can see the place, the store, the location, the date, the time. And oftentimes, if you're looking at level 3 data and the detail is not there, you get a little suspicious too. And so there was no detail. Like if you go to Home Depot, it's going to say paint. You go to the candy store and it just didn't say anything. It was.
Oh man, they've really got these like broken down.
Oh, you're looking at them now. Yeah, yeah.
They've got one broken out for bakeries.
Yes. There's one for almost everything. There's one for pawn shops, for wreckage and salvage yards, for bicycle shops, bookstores. Yeah. It's very detailed. And this is why I encourage auditors to understand how data works, because using data analytics can actually streamline what we do and make it to where we're more valuable to our organizations. But yeah, the candy store. Did I make it clean enough? That was clean, right? I'm not going to get.
I'm trying to sit here. It's just making me. I was thinking out loud. Never mind. I do that a lot. Yeah, it's just crazy. Mind blown. I learned something new today, so I'm done. Haven't you heard that rule? You have to learn one new thing every single day, and then you can be done for the day.
Yeah, exactly.
If only that really worked.
Well, all right, everyone. So this was episode number 128 of the Friday Fraudster, Foul Play Finance. An individual allegedly stole $22 million from a professional football team. And by all accounts, it looks like he spent most of it on we don't know, because we don't see a lot of tangible assets. So my guess is we're going to come back later and we're going to find out he purchased things under shell companies or something, or he did literally blow it all away on just having a good time.
I think his gambling habit was that bad.
Yeah, that's real bad.
Because they said that he went to rehab since he was fired until they pressed charges against him. He was in rehab for it.
Yeah. And that's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, folks. Thank you all for joining us this week on another episode of the Friday Fraudster. And we'll see you all next week.
Peace out.